Cooler Master's new Master Set MS120 sets you up with a gaming keyboard and mouse for just $89.99. The keyboard features mechanical switches, rubber dome hybrids with a clicky mechanical feel, per-key RGB backlighting, and 9 preset LED modes. The mouse has durable Omron switches, a 3500 DPI PixArt optical sensor, and matching RGB lighting. Click the link in the description for more information.
Excellent!
What's up guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Paul's Hardware. I am moving on from my Vega testing because I think I want to give that a little bit of time for maybe some drivers to mature and also to figure out how the pricing is going with that. So for today's video I'm switching back to Threadripper mode because I've just had this guy arrive in the mail. This is the EK Supremacy EVO Threadripper edition, and if you guys want to check out a cool video done by Gamers Nexus actually before Threadripper even launched, they sort of took a look at where the dies are placed on Threadripper and what kind of coverage you currently get with the existing Ace Tech blocks that you can use with the adapter that comes in the package. And my question with Threadripper today is, since the dies are spread out, and there's 4 of them, since the heat spreader itself is so big, and since the Ace Tech blocks aren't completely covering the heat spreader, is there going to be a marked improvement in thermals when we switch from using those Ace Tech liquid coolers to something specifically designed for Threadripper like this block from EK? For now, I'm going to get started. Actually, I need to do some cleanup first too, and I'm going to get my Threadripper test bench set up. And for my test bench, I'm actually going to be testing out a new X399 motherboard for today. This is the Gigabyte X399 Aorus Gaming 7. The block itself, I have positive things to say for, at least from the get-go. I haven't tested it right now, but taking it out of the box, pretty simple. It's just an EVO block. I did take it apart to take a closer look at the block itself and the channels that are under there. You will notice that the actual contact plate is huge. It's substantially larger than one of these standard Ace Tech copper blocks that makes contact with the CPU heat spreader. And side by side you can see it will probably make a lot more contact here, and that should aid in heat dissipation, theoretically. I also noticed that the microfin channels inside the block, which is where the most efficient heat transfer takes place, is a bit larger than it has been on previous blocks as well. So again, theoretically, if that is directly above or mostly above where the actual dies are on the Threadripper, then it should theoretically give a little bit more heat dissipation and might lead to better temperatures, potentially even better overclocking. Mounting the unit itself is also not too challenging at all. Thankfully, Threadripper TR4 socket, just like Intel's high-end desktop socket, has a back plate that's pre-installed, so it's just a matter of tightening down the 4 thumb screws, of course after you've applied thermal paste. And I will say that the thermal paste provided is nice. It's actually called Thermal Grizzly, but I used the entire tube on this one application, and I'll see when I take it off if it actually got enough coverage. Beyond that, the water cooling loop itself I was setting up using the existing Fractal Kelvin cooler that I had already installed. I totally forgot that the Praxis wet bench is made for water cooling and that I could have just removed this bracket to remove this. Whatever, that'll help for putting it back on. It's been a few months at least. No, it's been several months since I actually built this thing. But thankfully this is a copper radiator and it does have G1/4 fittings, so I was able to remove the Fractal pump slash block, and that was a little bit of a challenge, but I did get it off. And then my plan was to use this unit over here, which is from the EK Predator 280, which I've had in storage. It's a big old 280mm radiator, and down here on this end it has a pump combo that's part of the radiator. So I would have been able to just connect that all up, and I would have my pump reservoir. Essentially, I would have had to top it off, of course. But when I took the box out of storage, it's just been in the garage for the past few months since I reviewed this, and this fitting just broke, just snapped. So water was leaking out of the box when I took it out of the garage, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And eventually determined that just broke. I'm not sure how it happened. Like I said, it's just been in storage, but can't really use this because of that. I might be able to disassemble this thing and make use of some of the parts that are in there, but we'll figure that out at a later date. So the solution is to set up a more standard type of loop with a reservoir and a pump, and then a radiator, and then of course the block over here. So I'm going to reuse the pump reservoir from Arctic Panther since it's not doing anything right now. That should get the job done, and then I got to reassemble all this thing, and then I can actually start testing. So let's get back to work, shall we? So this is one of those projects that I was expecting to get done in maybe a day or a day and a half, and it's now like over a week later, but that's okay. There's various reasons for that. But let's focus on the project at hand, which is getting this water cooling loop set up and how I have accomplished it. Block, of course, is installed right there, as you probably saw earlier, and then I had to accommodate the rest of the loop, which includes the reservoir and the pump right there, as well as the radiator, which is installed back here. So I'm still using the radiator from the Fractal Kelvin, which is a 360 millimeter copper radiator. I'm using the tubing and the quick release connections from that EK kit that I showed you, which had broken, at least the reservoir and pump part of that, but salvaged the tubing since I actually don't have very much flexible tubing. I have lots of PETG hardline tubing, but not a lot of flexible stuff. So this is nice because it allowed me to use the quick releases still, and that means I could pop this off and pop on a different block if I swapped out the motherboard over to X299 or something like that, so that's convenient. And then for the actual pump and reservoir down here, I just used the same existing pump and res that I have salvaged from Arctic Panther, and that is still in fine shape. So after getting everything installed and getting the fittings in place and whatnot, I had to cycle through and do a bunch of cleaning because some of this equipment has been used before, so I had to stock up on my distilled water, and then I just basically refilled that reservoir multiple times over and over again, cycled it through, emptied it out, and so on and so forth, just to make sure that everything in there is clean and tidy. So now I can finally move on with my testing. So I'm going to try to keep things pretty simple since I'm just testing the 1920X in there, and since I haven't tested that before, I need to get some baseline numbers first of all, and then I will do a burn-in test and see how hot things get, and then of course I will be switching over to the H100i from Corsair to give us a little bit of comparison. So let's begin our testing. The EK water block is currently installed, and this is the idle test. So for idle, it's just been sitting here at idle. I was going for about 15 minutes, but we're actually closer to 25 minutes now to let everything settle down. Pro tip, I've discovered something about the Ryzen Master software, which is that if you turn on the active monitoring, it actually takes up about 4 or 5% CPU load, and the CPU temperatures go way up. So here's my idle temperature, which is right around, it's been about bouncing between 33 and 35 for the most part. Although if you do turn on monitoring, suddenly it becomes like 40 to 45, so that's why I'm doing things as I am right now. Over here I'm using hardware monitor to also monitor temperatures, and here you can see both the offset temperature at the top as well as the actual temperature right here. There's a 27 degree offset, so the top value will always be 27 degrees warmer than the current value, and here we can again see we're idling around 33 to 35 degrees Celsius. I also wanted to point out when it comes to the actual processor, since this is the 1920X and we have 12 cores, you can see all the cores listed right here, and at stock it's actually going to run at about 3.7 gigahertz when it's running on most of the cores. Individual cores though, when it's using say 2 or 4 of them, can actually boost up to well beyond 3.7 gigahertz. So we're actually seeing about 4.1, if you look over here at the maximum values, about 4.1, 4.15 is what the cores are actually hitting individually. But of course when we're actually running a load test, it's going to be running that across all the cores, so I'll double check that again when we get back to that. And now the burn test is going. Well, it has been going now for about 25 minutes. I was actually again intending to stop it at 20 minutes and I lost track of time, but that's okay. So our maximum temperature was recorded over here by Hardware Info 64, and that's actually a little bit higher than it actually was. Spiked to 76.3, but actually it was running at about 68 degrees Celsius pretty stably, and you can tell that a little bit by the histogram here. The CPU is the blue line going across the top here, which is very stable for the most part, running at about 68 degrees, and I don't think it's going to change too much more beyond that. So I'm going to call that my value for the burn test, and oh, just in case you're wondering, system stability test is running with CPU, FPU, and cache, but not system memory, which does tend to lead to slightly higher temps for the burn test, at least from what I've been told. And then also just to scroll up here and take a look at our core clocks, we're actually running at about 3.5 gigahertz on most of the cores, although it does fluctuate a bit. going from between about 3.3 to about 3.6 overall. And since I reset this right after the test started, we can see that since it's running on all cores, it never got over 3.7 gigahertz while it was under load. So next up, I'm going to swap in the H100i V2, and I will be making use of my quick disconnects right here to pop off the Threadripper block, and then we'll get that test up and running. So I now have the trusty H100i V2 installed, so let's go ahead and fire up the test bed here. And I've applied plenty of thermal paste again, just like I did with the EK block. In case you're wondering, I was using the EK thermal paste, the same stuff that they provide. It's basically the same stuff they provide with their GPU blocks and that kind of thing when you buy them. And we're just gonna load into Windows here, see how things are looking. Those fans appear to be hitting it pretty hard already. They're running pretty loud. So there's hardware info 64, and let's take a look at our initial CPU temperatures. Looks like we're at a nice chilly 93.3 degrees Celsius. Appears to be climbing fairly quickly. 94, 94.8, 95. Huh. The Corsair H100i doesn't seem to be doing a very good job keeping things chilly here. Fans are running loud. You know what happens when temperatures get really hot and they keep climbing and climbing and climbing? Theoretically, oh, there it goes. That is called thermal junction max, TJ max, and the system just shut itself off to prevent the 1920X from being damaged. I know what's going on. My Corsair H100i V2 pump has died. I've, if you couldn't tell my sarcasm as I was starting off this little bit, this is one of my main issues, one of the reasons that I have stopped using AIOs in any of my production machines, one of the reasons why I sort of have gotten less and less inclined to recommending AIOs, and it's just one of those points of failures that can be very, very challenging to deal with. But yeah, pump dead. So guys, I'm going to be as candid as I can right now. This has been the video from hell. Everything has gone wrong. Starting off like over a week ago with setting up the water cooling loop. There was so much frustration. Like, I can't even talk about all the little individual things that went wrong over the course of time. Ending with, now my pump's dead. I'm an H100i V2, so the AIO cooler that I've been telling you guys I'm going to compare against the entire time is now dead. Now, of course, there's other things I could do. I could pull another AIO out. I have other options, but at this point, I am so sick and tired of this actual video that I am just going to end it. So I'm sorry for those of you guys who were looking for a more direct comparison of the Threadripper water block to something else. Maybe I'll come back to that in the future. We'll see how that goes. But for now, that's all for this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it, such as it is. And I'm going to try to come back soon, because I had a bad week last week too. I didn't get many videos posted. I just need to kind of get back on track and sort of reassess my situation and hopefully put myself in a better mood moving forward. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, hit the thumbs up button. We'll see you guys in the next one.